All right, and welcome to this episode of Hammering Down. Your host, Kaylor Hodges, and I am joined by a very special guest, Mr. Benton Newman of Vamos Morados. Did I get it?
Yeah, you got it right.
Yes, let's
Vamos
go.
Morados, go purple in Spanish.
Hey, look at me. Those 2 years of high school have really done me well. But
I took German, so I had to learn that on my own.
well, he is joining me because we are doing our pre-match preview for Louisville City, everybody's favorite to win the Central Division, including me, and a lot of people's pick to win the USL Championship yet again. So, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited that Louisville City football is back. I've been loving going to the games. They've been letting fans down to see the Legion games, right?
They have. We were at
That's good.
50% capacity, and I'm pretty sure we hit that. They didn't release a number, but it looked pretty freaking full.
Good. Yeah, I know it always feels real good to be back. I don't know if you guys got to attend last season and all, but
We did, and it was not that much. I want to say it was 25 or 30%.
it
So
was low.
just
It was low
having
for us
those
too.
just having that extra amount of people was just made all the difference.
We'll take every little bit that we can get, well, safely at least.
For sure.
Yeah.
And you guys have a new stadium with Lynn Stadium under the eyelash lights. It's very nice stadium when driving past.
Oh, it's a lot of fun to be at, especially when those lights are going after we scored.
Man, let's just hope that we don't have to see those too much on Saturday nights.
I'm hoping for a light show myself.
uh, that's where we can disagree. So this Louisville City team, for a lot of Legion fans, they're kind of new into the USL scene. Louisville City is a mainstay. If you've been following USL for a while, you know who they are. Just a little bit of background, which this might burn some bridges between you and I. Before Legion became around, I did follow FC Cincinnati very hard. That was my team. So I was very much familiar with Louisville City, and I was like, God, I hate them. They're the worst. Their fans are awful. And then, I met them as not an FC Cincinnati fan, and they were actually okay. And, I had to say that you aren't horrible, but I mean, you guys are nothing but successful. And it's gone through coaching changes, not having a coach, player coaches, and what, just wondering, what about Louisville City just seems to make you guys so different? Why do you guys just stay good?
I think from day one, the leadership team has had a pretty clear vision to be able to execute on that. And I think starting off on that right foot has really helped us to continue to see success season after season. Even with the departure of James O'Connor, the first coach, when he left to go to Orlando City in the MLS, and we had the triumvirate of three players coaching us. I mean, they were veteran players. They knew what they needed to do to hold down the ship. And then, the ownership team brought in a very strong coach in John Hackworth, and so they were able to kind of almost seamlessly pick up from where we left off. So I think it all stems from the top.
I mean, it doesn't it say a lot when Hackworth is he doesn't make the finals. And all he does is make the Eastern Conference finals and puts up a very good competitive match against the Rowdies, and people are calling for his head because he wasn't successful enough. I mean, that was insane. And the thing is that the Rowdies were no slouch. I mean, legitimately, I believe the Rowdies had one of the best lineups and especially the best backlines the USL has ever seen. And Louisville City barely lost out, and everybody's like, "Ah, oh, he sucks. Get him out of here."
So I think the Hackworth out crowd was a very small vocal minority of people. I think most people appreciate what John Hackworth brought to the table, but I mean, kind of to your point, like only making the Eastern Conference Finals seems like a little bit of a letdown after the regular Finals performances. So I'm still ultimately happy with what we got. Like you said, that Tampa Bay Rowdies team was very good. I think one thing that they had that we weren't so accustomed to facing is depth. It's not something you usually see in a lot of USL teams. Something that we've been fortunate to have, and we went toe to toe with that. And props to them coming out on top in that encounter. But we'll just have to make sure if we play them again, we get the better of them.
So, kind of just following the same Hackworth thread. Are you in agreement with me that he's going to be going to RB Salzburg or what? Are we?
No, I don't. I don't. I don't know that it was him necessarily opting to leave for another coaching job. I think if he does end up somewhere in the near future, it's probably coincidental. I really don't have any additional information that hasn't already been made public. All that we know is that pretty suddenly after the first match of the season, there was a mutual parting of ways. The press release was very brief, which I think you can read between the lines there that maybe there's some it wasn't exactly the prettiest of departures, and I don't know who's to fault or blame there. And then also the fact that there's an NDA in the mix, meaning we're probably never going to exactly find out what had transpired, if whether the club or Coach Hackworth had done something in the wrong. I just don't think we'll ever know. But I really don't think that it's a for another coaching gig. But again, I in that sense, I appreciate what he gave to the club, and I do hope he finds another job, and I wish him success elsewhere, unless it's against like a rival or something.
Well, so something kind of interesting. I feel like I read this a while back. Maybe I'm totally misremembering, but I feel like when James O'Connor was first, that is his name, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yep, James O'Connor.
We had to make sure. When he was first signed back with Louisville City and he took a front office position, he even spoke out that, he has a bit of an ego, and he thinks he knows best at all times, even if it's against best interest. And I feel like that was something that was just briefly mentioned. He kind of said jokingly, but you kind of have to wonder when you see, Hacksworth just suddenly cut like that. It's like, is this something that James O'Connor was involved with? But he's more on the racing side, isn't he?
Yeah. And that quote, I believe it was John Hackworth that said that. I know what
sorry.
No, I know what you're referencing there, because somebody recently resurfaced that an article, whatever, when Hackworth was signed. But yeah, that was a quote there. I think some people were kind of reading into, and I mean, kind of, it was kind of a weird situation there, because we all loved James O'Connor and happy to have him back. At the same time, like, it's just a weird thing having the old coach kind of lurking in the background with the new coach. That's kind of a weird, unique stress or pressure that might have been on Hackworth, and I don't know how that might have developed over time. I imagine at least initially it was weird. I'd like to think it kind of sorted itself out over time. But like you said, it's my understanding he's mostly on the racing side of things, and I don't think he's really gotten his hands too deep into the Louisville City side. And shortly after Coach Hackworth's departure, a lot of people were obviously speculating that James O'Connor would go back to Louisville City, but that was very quickly dismissed. So it's not like there was some sort of weird political play there to get his old job back. I mean, there's a lot more stability in an admin sort of role that he has now, let alone that with Racing Louisville, it's kind of in a higher capacity with the NWSL.
Maybe I'm totally wrong here, but I'm just going to make a little NFL USL comparison here.
All right, there you go.
And it just almost kind of, when I saw that James O'Connor got re-signed at Louisville City, I felt like no matter what, and like you said, it wasn't really Louisville City, it's more racing, but it's all the same building,
Yep,
kind of the same
absolutely.
pressures. And it almost feels like Jerry Jones and whoever the Dallas Cowboys head coach is, it's like, okay, yeah, there's a head coach, but this is, this is Jerry Jones's world. This is his show. I know it's not quite that extreme, but it kind of can feel that way. It's, here's the old coach that is easily the most successful coach of this franchise's history, and it's not even close. Here he is.
Yeah, no, I can totally see these vibes. I think thankfully James O'Connor isn't Jerry Jones. I think he's a lot more easy to deal with and I guess less confrontational. But yeah, I mean,
Koch that.
It's I mean that's totally valid though. Again, that was a very weird, unique situation, and I'm sure it ruffled some feathers at first, certainly.
So let's just assume that this upcoming match, which this will be the first match against Legion, will be without your head coach. You're going to be having the interim, which a lot of people said that your new coach was going to be who it was. Who exactly is he? And are you expecting a similar kind of style to what we saw with Hacksworth? Because I know they were basically just hand in hand working together all the time anyway.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the interim head coach is Coach Danny Cruz. He was Coach John Hackworth's right hand man and joined the organization as soon as Coach Hackworth did. So he's been there day one of the Hackworth regime. So he's very familiar with the players, their playing style. So I like to imagine it's going to be a pretty seamless transition. One thing that's kind of stuck out to me with this is that last season it came out that Danny Cruz had a preferred playing style that we really hadn't seen much. He liked a back three formation, a 3-5-2, which we did use once last season, and we actually used it in our preseason match against Pittsburgh. So one thing that I'm thinking about is that is Coach Danny Cruz going to go with his preference and switch us to kind of a back three formation, or stick with what we've largely been playing for the last 2 years, which is a 4-3-3? So that's something I'm really kind of curious to see. I'm going to assume he's going to err on the side of caution and go with a 4-3-3, stick with that more familiar setup. But you never know.
So let's just think about this in two different threads, because I mean both are chances. I mean, if we see a deviation from both of those, I think that'll be a shock to both USL and Louisville City fans.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just suppose we go to the 4-3-3, which had a fair amount of success against the Atlanta United 2 squad, which that match was something. I rewatched it. I think I've watched it twice now, because one was for my Central Division breakdown, and the other one is for, to kind of prepare for this interview. And for the first half, it looked to me that Atlanta United might have even been the slightly better team. But also, Atlanta United might set the record for the most offsides calls in USL history this year. Do you know how many through two matches they have off the top of your head?
No, I don't. I mean, they were getting them quite a bit.
They have 11. In
11.
two
Wow.
matches, they have 11. They had 5 against y'all and 6 against OKC Energy.
I mean, part of that's got to be the lack of continuity with that squad. I mean, their timings, their rhythms, or whatnot are all together, and that's the one thing with these MLS2 sort of teams, is that they're kind of a hodgepodge of talented players, but a hodgepodge nonetheless.
I mean, that's insane. But the amount of chances that Atlanta United 2 created against the Louisville City backline that ended up not mattering because they were offsides, it was a little bit alarming, though, because I could even tell whenever I listened to the crowd, everybody was like, half second later, and we might be down, 1-0, 2-0. This is really bad. What was the change that we saw from first half to second half?
Yeah, I'm really curious what Coach Hackworth said to him at halftime, because going into halftime, I was personally a bit disappointed. I felt like this is a game that could have gotten out of hand in Louisville City's favor, and the fact that it hadn't and it only ended 2-0 was honestly a little bit of a disappointment. Like I said before, there's a lot of talented players on these MLS2 squads, but again, that lack of continuity, they're oftentimes young players. Like, that's something we should be able to exploit. We have a lot of smart veteran players that I think maybe we should have been able to do better with. But as far as the change, I think they were largely kind of keeping with that same sort of a game plan, because again, I think we were largely keeping possession, largely keeping the pressure on them. Like you said, most of the chances they had were would have been offside calls, and the very few that weren't, well, again, there were very few. There's one attempt in the first half where they kind of get on a bit of a breakaway. That was their only real goal scoring opportunity that I recall. And our one of our young fullbacks, Jonathan Gomez, was able to kind of get back and help disrupt it, along with a nice save from the keeper. But I think it was just kind of more of maintaining the strategy that they did have going in there.
One of the things that was really impressive about the Louisville City win was that you guys held about 60, like somewhere between like 67 to, or sorry, 57 to 60% of the possession. I don't remember exactly the set off the top of my head.
60 on FootMob.
Okay. So I was there, and what's really impressive about that is that Atlanta United, especially the 2 team, their whole philosophy is hold the ball, because if you have the ball, the other team doesn't have the ball. The game might end 0-0, but at least you didn't score. And that's been traditionally what they've done, at least all of last year. And they did against OKC Energy. The fact that that Louisville City did not allow that to happen, does that mean Louisville City is more of this pressing team, or are they just going to kind of let you make your mistakes, and then as soon as you make your mistake, hold on to the ball so you don't get to have the ball back.
I think we're probably a bit more of a pressing team. If you kind of look back at some of the data, I mean, we oftentimes will win the possession battle. I mean, doesn't necessarily correlate with winning, but that is what I've noticed. I had the numbers pulled up here. Possession last season, we had 53.8% of possession in 2020. So more often than not, we were oftentimes more of the aggressive team. That's more of our style. Our style plays, we're going to keep the ball on your end, and we're going to keep poking and prodding and looking for those opportunities. And I think the reason Atlanta was not able to do that is just because we have such a great gelled squad full of veterans that they've been playing this system for a long time. And again, a lot of youth on that Atlanta 2 team. I mean, later down the stretch, they might be doing a little bit better, but this was this was game one in the campaigns. So I'm sure there's still some growing to do on their end of things. But even later in the season, I'd like to think that we could still put a hefty score line against them.
Yeah, and I think that's probably kind of going to another topic. That's probably why OKC Energy fans were so upset that they lost 1-0 to Atlanta United, is because in order to lose to a 2 team this early in the season, you have to be pretty dysfunctional, which is kind of worrying. But there was a lot of players on Louisville City. If you've been around USL or even some MLS, it's like, oh, I know that guy. Oh, I've heard of that guy. That guy had a few starts. But one of the most impressive players that I think was that played, he got subbed off pretty early, but your central midfielder Watts, he might be the best player on that team, and he's not going to get the same recognition as everybody else. The amount of times he would just dribble the ball into the edge of the area or get it in and then pass it off to somebody else and just create chances during the Atlanta United match was very impressive. It's not going to show up on the stat sheet, but just his ability to move around and create space on and off the ball is just insane. Is that kind of the same thing that you guys are seeing?
Yeah, I'm so glad that you called it out, because I want to make sure that we talked about some of our young players. Akil Watts is one of them. What is he? 21, 22. He's still very young. He's somebody I expect going to be getting a lot more minutes this season. Last season, he was more kind of an off the bench player, and when he's playing in more of a fullback capacity. But once or twice, he did play in the midfield. So this previous game, he did start in the midfield, which I quite frankly didn't expect for him to start. But I'm very happy that he did, because he put out a very good performance. And again, like I said, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of him. So he's very solid, and like you said, a lot of those things don't show up on the stats sheet. So I'm excited to see more from him. The other player I want to make sure we mention is young Jonathan Gomez. Kid's going to be ended up in Europe before the end of the season. He turns 18 in September. There's already teams looking at him. He's very good. I feel like every game that you watch him, you can watch him grow in real time. He particularly stood out to me in that Atlanta 2 matchup. I mean, 17-year-old kid standing up with these full-grown men at his skill level. He didn't look like he belonged. He looked like he was one of the top fullbacks in the league. So I was very happy with what I saw from him.
Yeah, Gomez was a really solid player, and everything he did just looked. What was very shocking, because you mentioned his age, it wasn't just the fact that he looked good, he looked mature while doing it.
Mm-hmm.
There weren't a lot of those immature mistakes. There were a few times that I think Atlanta United maybe put a little bit of pressure on him, and he sped up his internal clock maybe a little bit sooner than he should have. It was like, oh, they're coming after me, let me just dump it off. But even when he just dumped it off to somebody else, it was a good pass. It was the right decision. It's just maybe it happened a hair quicker than you would like.
Mm-hmm.
But 17, 18 years old, that's nuts. And
he's got great soccer IQ. Like, again, he's going to go places. So I'm glad that we have him, and I'm going to appreciate him while we have him here. But it's not entirely impossible that he won't be with us at the end of the season, because he'll be off to bigger and better. And you know what? Hats off to him. I'll cheer him on.
For sure. And you have an interesting goal scorer this last week. Del Piccolo, he's not really known as, I mean, he's a scorer for sure, but whenever people think of Louisville City and scoring, it's always Lancaster. That's always the number one. It's like if someone's going to score out of Louisville City, it's going to be Lancaster every single time. Mm-hmm. Maybe McCabe, maybe. But Del Piccolo just kind of, he's sneaky. What about him makes him just a threat on the offense, either as an assister or as a scorer.
He's a very smart player, and he gets himself into the right positions to be able to make those goal scoring opportunities. Like you said, he's not some sort of natural ball hawk that is going to be slamming home bangers, but he'll put himself in a position to make those things happen. I think he scored only 2 goals last season, so he's already tied up his full tally. Well, one thing that's been kind of interesting is he's been playing farther up the pitch this season. We've noticed in this first game, as well as that preseason match against Pittsburgh that was open to fans. Traditionally, he's played a bit more back, and I think that's probably limited his opportunity. So if he continues to play more forward, might see some more goal scoring potential for him. So it's very happy for the captain there.
It's always terrifying to hear Louisville City be like, oh yeah, we can just have another guy score, no big deal. It's like, great, you don't need another one. you have enough.
We got a couple, yeah.
Share the wealth a little bit, why don't you? I have to ask because, like I said at the very beginning, I did start off as a FC Cincinnati fan. Man, it hurts to see Bone and, of course, Jimmy McLaughlin coming in for you guys. Like, that is just painful. That just hurts to see. But Corbin Bone has been an amazing player for you guys. He's not the big assist guy and he's not the big scoring guy, but he just makes plays. He's just always there, always making plays. How have those guys really bought into y'all's system, and how do they fit?
So Corbin Bone's great. He's the word I would describe him is consistent. He's he's a smart veteran player, and that's kind of exactly what we need in the midfield that kind of help the whole machine work. I'll be honest. The first few games of 2020 wasn't all that impressed with him. I mean, these were his first few with us, but by midseason, late season, I mean, he was a solid, deserved regular, and eat my words there about not being so impressive at him. But especially now this season with Speedy Williams gone, I think his presence is all the more important in that midfield setup. As far as Jimmy goes, he's new this season, so we haven't got to see a whole bunch of him yet. I haven't seen any goals out of him yet, but again, only one regular season match. I think he's going to add something different to our attack, add some new variety. I know FC Cincinnati fans really liked him, and I think that there were some up north that were disappointed to see him go from their squad. But their loss is our gain.
Yeah, the thing with Jimmy McLaughlin, and a lot of people really liked him as a player, and he's still a fantastic player. I think he is maybe I don't know how to put this into proof or anything like that. So this is just going to be a wild statement. I'm just going to stand by it. He might be the single greatest super sub in USL history because he's not a consistent starter. He never really was, but you bring him in like the 75th minute, the 60th minute, if you just need something, if you're down by 1 or 2 goals, or, if you just want to put, really put the foot to the throat of another opponent, he's always going to run after the ball. It's almost kind of like watching a young puppy go chase after a ball, because no matter what, he'll go get it. He will go get it every single time. Will he score that much? Not really, but he's a nuisance. He'll dispossess the other team. He'll hold on to possession, win you fouls, and you'll win the game. He might just be the single greatest super sub in USL history.
I love that, and I think the role of being a super sub is undervalued, and the more that we can have, the better. I mean, we have a competitive deep team, so it's going to be hard to break into that 11. And if that's going to how you're going to make your mark, then more power to him. So if he's already has a background in that, that's great. I mean, he was subbed on, or he might have started the preseason match, but I know he was subbed on in the Atlanta match. So maybe that's a sign to see that he's going to be one of the first off the bench. But I'm curious to kind of see some more play out of him, especially see some goal scoring. I've heard he's quite the celebratory individual.
Yeah, he's not a great dancer, but he will dance for you, and everybody will love it. So
I'm actually from the outside the Cincinnati area, so I grew up a Bengals fan, and one of my favorite athletes of all time is Chad Johnson. So I'm hoping he's like the soccer version of that with the eccentric celebrations.
Yeah, that's pretty similar. That's pretty on brand. If you can get him to score, that's pretty similar. It's always just an entertaining time. The most iconic one was him trying to do a cartwheel and then just celebrating afterwards after he kind of did a cartwheel. It sort of happened, but it was like watching him do it, everybody was like, "Oh yeah, that's what I look like when I do a cartwheel too." In your mind, you think it looked awesome, but watching it back, it looked horrible. But he was so happy about it. It was great. It's great to watch.
Oh, I'm excited to see that when he finally does bang one in the net.
So Louisville City's good. I don't think that's too hot of a take. You guys know you're good, and
I like to
really
think so.
the difference is for Louisville City fans, it's like, yeah, we're really good. We might make it to the USL Championship game, but I don't know if we'll win it this year. It's kind of that level of consistency for a team like Legion, who we are going to be without JJ Williams because of his red card suspension. We're going to be out one more match without Junior Flemings. I just throw it out there. I wish it would have been more matches. I think he should be out more, but that's not my that's not my job. And then we're going to be out with Hervo. Those are two guys who are starters and one guy who could be a starter in Hervo, or at least an amazing bench player for us. That said, we have a guy named Jaden Cervena, who is a Costa Rican national team player. He's been a capped. He's a starter for them. And we have Nico Brett, who every single USL fan knows who Nico Brett is, just a perennial scorer. And then on the other side, it's just, well, who's going to fill in? Is it going to be Prosper Kasim? He was a starter for us before. Very fast player, can control the ball, does what he does, and he does it well. What does it take to break down a Louisville City back line? Because after watching the Indy 11 match, and there's a lot to say about that match, our defense was put under a ton of pressure, but they only conceded one goal, and even then, it was a rebound goal. It's just a little bit of harsh luck. So we feel pretty comfortable in our defense. If we can keep you guys to one or two goals, how in the world do Legion score two or three?
Yeah, I've thought a lot about this, and it's a difficult puzzle. And I think the main thing is that you can't let Louisville City play their game. They're gonna keep possession, they're gonna press it end the year half, and they're gonna poke and prod until they can find that goal. I think it's probably in the Legion's best interest to attack early and take a hold of the game. I was trying to think about where's specific weaknesses in our squad, and it's I mean, I'm not trying to be like cocky or anything, but it's kind of hard. I think we have a solid team, but one area I would look to maybe try to exploit is the midfield. And the reason I say that is because the departure of Speedy Williams was huge. There's just no way of getting about that. He's a fantastic player, and nobody wants to see him go. And I mean, we did bring in a phenomenal replacement in Tyler Gibson, who I think is going to do a great job for us. But he's still new with the team, and I think you have an opportunity to really test, can that midfield hold up? So maybe you have an opportunity of overrunning the midfield to retain possession and to push things in our half, keep us in the back foot, and then from there you might be able to kind of poke and prod and look for a goal. Because even if you do win that battle to get it into our half and keep it in our half, we have a pretty strong back line that's going to help to keep that out. Sean Tosh, very outstanding player. We've been bragging about Jonathan Gomez, who's really grown leaps and bounds. Oscar Jimenez, he's fantastic. So I mean, there's a lot of pieces there that are going to help kind of keep you from getting good shots, but you'll be able to get those shots if you can win that midfield battle. And
Oh, I was going to say, the thing that Legion have that I don't think anybody in the USL has seen before is the amount of speed that's on this team. I mean, we have a guy in our back line, Johnny Dean, who might be the single fastest player in the USL, and I will put him on a race against anybody and the thing is he'll do it for all 90 minutes. We have Jaden Cervena, who's quick and he can control the ball. And we have Ryan James, who is fast in his own right. He doesn't look as quick, but then you see him run and he's going. Mm-hmm. I think the level of speed that Legion have is really impressive, and not having a beach for a pitch might help us. Not have to deal with that anymore.
I wasn't going to comment on that situation. I felt bad for y'all.
Yeah, that's totally on UAB, and We made that very apparent. We have a statement out about that, obviously, but that's their fault. This is not the first time this has happened. Very unfortunate, but the way we play, Tommy Sohn was an indoor soccer guy. That's where our coach got his start. So if you watch us play, it looks like an indoor soccer match in the sense of it's one touch passes, it's as fast as you can. I legitimately believe that the Birmingham Legion have the best one touch passing, and not just the USL, but all levels of American soccer. The consistency of the one touch pass and the ability to get it where they want to go and just continue to run Mach 5, that's something that I think maybe could take advantage of an not really older team in Louisville City
They're
because there's
older.
a lot of youth, but that midfield is fairly old.
Yeah.
Is that a concern that you guys could have?
Yeah, I mean, thinking about it, like you're right. I mean, I think our average age is on the upper edge of things. We do have some younger pieces. I was trying as you're talking about that, I was thinking about who on our team is quick. You got people like Brian Ownby, Napa Masotso, I think Jonathan Gomez and Akil Watts are both pretty fast, along with Oscar. The rest of the guys I'd probably categorize as is average, if not maybe slightly below average. So I think there might be an opportunity to kind of leverage that speed to kind of get an advantage.
Okay. So I know I kind of asked this question. I kind of cut you off. My bad about that. But if Legion were to win this game, if go away from home, and let's just assume the communication issues from the Indy 11 match are fixed, what does Legion have to do tactically to beat you guys other than an actual miracle?
Yeah, I'd say again, like on the offensive thing, you can't let us play our game. You gotta I'd say maybe perhaps overwhelm the midfield and go from there. On the defensive side, I think my word of caution would be is that it's not just about isolating Cam Lancaster. Yes, he's a prolific goal scorer and he's going to bang him in with regularity, but he's not the only places where our goals are going to come from. Corbin Bone put in a few last season. Napo Masotso has some magic in him. You got players like Antoine Hopino. He'll score a few. He's more of kind of an assist guy. We got now McKay back. We'll put him in. So I mean, they're coming from a lot of places. Even Paulo DiPiccolo's getting in on the action this season. Oscar on the back line, he scored one in the preseason match. So I think it's being wary of a multitude of players. Not that they wouldn't be anyway, but it's not like a shut a one player down kind of situation like it might have been for, say, like Indy 11 last season with Tyler Pasher.
Yeah. It's just really insane just thinking about the amount of talent that's on that Louisville City team. And you mentioned Oscar Jimenez. I mean, by my own account, by watching that match, he probably was the one that was orchestrating the entire offense. It felt like, which is very strange to say out of a right fullback, but it just seemed like anytime an offensive chance was happening, it was coming from him and Watts. Those two guys were the reason the offense started up at all, which is just nuts. That's just insane to think about.
He's I'm not going to call him I don't know the right term, but I'm going to use unsung hero. But he's not unsung because a lot of people love him. But he is he's a very vital part of the team. A lot of these regular names that you're used to seeing on the Louisville City roster have remained here for a reason because they're part of that success. They have helped us rack up as many wins and trophies as we've gotten, even in the back line. That influence.
So, kind of going away from what's happening on the pitch, I'm just so interested in what's happening in Louisville. I mean, I remember going and watching y'all's first year at the baseball stadium and what was going on there. I mean, there was a crowd there, and the people that were there were very passionate. But then over the years, it has just grown and grown and grown to the point that you guys have a beautiful stadium, even though it does have eyelashes for lights, and you have an NML or NWSL team, which is fantastic. One of your defenders I've watched for 4 years straight, and Neely Martin. I watched her at Alabama, did not miss nearly any of the matches, and I absolutely adore her. So I guess I'm a Louisville racing fan now.
There you go.
But how did this thing grow? And was it always just a thing that was everybody knew was there, or was it once it came, everybody was like, "Oh, this is special"?
I think there were some people that knew it was there. The Louisville Coopers were around even before the formation of the team. I think they kind of saw the potential in the city and were really kind of rallying to help make that happen. It was individuals like Wayne Estopinal that really helped to bring the vision to life, and kind of tap into that. And one, I think there were a lot more soccer fans than people realized here, but two, winning helps. I mean, people are attracted to that, and I think that's really kind of helped build this thing over the years, and I think it's really kind of snowballed from there. We have a ownership group that is not afraid to invest in the product to raise up to the next level. They're not satisfied with the status quo on or off the pitch. So here we are several years later. We got a phenomenal stadium. It's so beautiful. I love going there. Got the NWSL team now. Like, who would have thought a few years back we would have all the stuff that we do? So I feel quite spoiled that I'm in the city.
Yeah, I mean, something else that helps is Louisville City, because they are good and because the location you guys are in, it builds natural rivals. I mean, FC Cincinnati, that was a must watch match. And obviously for Louisville City fans, it's because most of the time you guys destroyed Cincinnati. But also, just the hatred between the fans was amazing. I mean, people went to go watch, neutrals went to go watch because it was an awesome sight to be seen. You have Indy 11, who is also somewhat of a regional rival. It's two teams that aren't known for being major league, but then also will just have amazing crowds and just support their clubs no matter what. Nashville was an amazing rival for the year or two that they were around. It's it's just amazing that because of the location, you guys just have all these natural rivals and you have all the success, and it just makes for a great atmosphere every single day. And obviously, you guys haven't got to see Lynn Stadium completely filled yet, but what's it been like?
It's been amazing. I was fortunately able to kind of attend all the games last season. Despite the limited capacity, I think our fans showed up and were helping to make noise in the atmosphere. Everybody had like at least like one thing that the pandemic kind of like took from them, like one event or something they were looking forward to. Mine was that home opener. It was
Against Legion.
oh, it was it really?
Yep, it
I
was
forgot I
supposed
was
to
against
be
them.
us. It was
Oh
supposed to be us.
man, that was going to be such a memorable match. That place is going to be filled to the brim with people. It was just me absolutely booming. I mean, eventually we'll get to the point where that stadium is filled, but it won't exactly be the same as what that very first match could have been. And nobody can control that. I get that, but boy, it's going to be electric when we do finally get back to kind of the new normal and able to fill that up. And I think it could really become more of a factor than it might have already has been to opposing teams.
I know for a lot of Legion fans, with us with a roster that looks like it could be something that could really rival you guys, and we're all on I-65. It's a bit of a travel, but it's not horrible. A lot of Legion fans are like, man, we want to build something with Louisville City. We want to have a real natural rivalry here. Maybe not exactly the whole we hate you guys and we're going to destroy your city, but more the we're both good. We both know we're both good. Let's sell out the stadium and have a good time today.
Hey, I'm
And
down with that.
and that's what we're hoping happens. So if you guys want to like not go to MLS and then and just wait for us to become consistently good all the time, this could be really fun. And an I-65 derby could be a good time.
Yeah, I'm all for it, and I think thankfully for you, I don't exactly see MLS in the future. I think if the opportunities arose, the ownership group would seriously consider it or maybe even take it. I just don't think it's within their control. But yeah, I mean, I love seeing the sport grow and seeing teams like the Legion really start to kind of come into their own. Um, Again, like I said before, I think that the Legion are gonna be one of the top teams in our division. So I think this is going to be a real big test for Louisville City. I like to think that they're going to be able to win on Saturday, but it's a test. We're gonna find that out, and hopefully a few of your fans get to make it up this way. If it's not for this game, the next time, I'm hoping that maybe later in the season I can come down to one of the Birmingham matches. That's one of the away trips that are on my radar.
It's a good time. Lots of local barbecue, the good stuff.
Oh, I'm down with
Not
that.
and as always, we We have beer that is dropped off by our very own coach. He'll drop by and give us some Coors Light. So he makes sure we're nice and rowdy, and I'm sure we might still, share some with you guys.
Oh, how nice.
So, but yeah, I mean, you guys have been awesome hosts whenever we went up, and you were a fun away crowd. So, but I will say this, and I'm going to issue this as a challenge, and I know it's a little bit early before you guys come down, but let's see this makes the rounds. So far, the Brickyard Battalion have been the best SG that have come to Birmingham, at least to me. And I just think that Louisville City, I think you guys could be a lot better than the Indy crowd, and they were pretty good. So that's a challenge to you
I
guys.
mean, challenge accepted. I'm not okay with losing to Indy in any capacity, whether it's on the pitch or the traveling crowd. So once we get more people vaccinated and feeling comfortable with it with making the trip, we're gonna have to step up our game. That's disappointing here. We're down early, but I think we can come back.
I think you guys can too. Before I let you go, I have to know, what do you think is going to happen on Saturday?
I think Louisville City's gonna win. I think it might be kind of close, but maybe not as close as you might be hoping. Um, Guessing a score line, let's say 2-1 Louisville City.
You're a little bit more optimistic than I am. I was thinking 3-1, but hey, I'll gladly take the 2-1.
I was
Gladly.
giving you guys some respect, but we'll
It
see. I mean, I'm okay. I'd prefer the 3-1.
if we just want to just take each other's, that'd be awesome. Well, Ben, you were awesome. It was a great talk, and everybody needs to go read Vamos Morados. It's a really good read. Ever since that I really discovered the website, I check it all the time because I love your style of writing, and I think it's very informative to not only Louisville City fans, but also the racing fans. They want to get into NWSL. And if you're a fan listening to this and you're looking for an NWSL team, I mean, Louisville is a great place to start. New team, wonderful fans. And if you're from Alabama, Neely Martin, an Alabama graduate, she's on the team and started 2 matches. So that's pretty cool. So there's my shout for racing.
Well, appreciate that, and thank you very much for having me on. It's been a pleasure, and I hope you guys get to make it up to their Louisville City or come up for a racing Louisville match. I think we have two different enjoyable teams in town. Great stadium, a lot of awesome breweries and places to get food in the area. So it'll be a good old time. I hope to make it down and check out a Legion match later in the season.
Hey, we're looking forward to hosting you, man. Thank you for so much for coming on, Mr. Benton Newman, the writer for Vamos Morados. Thanks, man.
Thank you.